The council chamber was massive. Its walls curved upward like the inside of a giant egg, made from some material that seemed to glow with soft blue light. Hundreds of seats lined the circular room, rising in tiers so everyone could see the center floor. Today, almost every seat was filled. Representatives from 47 different alien species sat in those seats. Some had scales, some had fur, and some looked like they were made of living crystal. They all watched the center of the room with interest. This was an important day. Earth wanted to join the Galactic Coalition as a full member, and today the council would vote. Yuna Kim sat in the human delegation section. She wore a simple dark blue uniform with no decorations except a single silver pin on her collar. Her black hair was pulled back tight and her face showed nothing. No emotion, no worry. She looked straight ahead at the center floor where the debate was happening. Next to her, Minho Park shifted in his seat. He was a big man with broad shoulders and calloused hands. His uniform had more decorations than Yuna's, showing his rank as a senior military officer. But right now, those decorations meant nothing. Like Yuna, he could only sit and watch. The High Arbiter Quella stood at the center podium. She was tall and thin with pale purple skin and 4 arms. Her species, the Vex, were known for being fair judges. That's why she led this council meeting. "We have heard arguments for and against Earth's admission," Quella said. Her voice was calm and clear. "Does anyone else wish to speak before we vote?" A figure rose from the lower sections. Ambassador Vrex was a Thorillian, a species that looked like walking reptiles with red scales and sharp teeth. He was old for his kind, with scars across his face that spoke of many battles. "I wish to speak," Vrex said. His voice was rough like gravel grinding together. "The council must not make this decision lightly. We must know who we are inviting into our alliance." Quellis nodded. "The council recognizes Ambassador Vrex." Vrex walked to the center floor. He carried a small device in his clawed hand. "The humans ask us to trust them, to give them access to our trade routes, our technology, our military coordination. But can we trust them? I have evidence that says no." Yuna's expression didn't change, but Minho felt his jaw tighten. He knew what was coming. They both did. 15 years ago, Vrex continued, there was a human colony called Terra Nova. It was attacked by pirates and raiders. A large force, yes, but not impossible to defeat. The human military fleet was there. 12 warships. Thousands of soldiers on the ground. And do you know what they did? Vrex paused for effect. The council chamber was silent. "They ran away," Vrex said, his voice full of disgust. "They left their own people to die. Left 40,000 civilians defenseless. Women, children, elderly, all abandoned." A murmur went through the council. Some species whispered to each other. Others shook their heads or made sounds of disapproval. "I have proof," Vrex said. He activated his device and a large holographic screen appeared above the center floor. "This is footage from that day. Recorded by neutral observers. Watch." The hologram showed space, stars scattered across a black background. Then ships came into view. Human ships, their hulls marked with Earth symbols. 12 military vessels in formation. Below them, visible on the edge of the frame, was a planet. Terra Nova. Even from space, you could see the fires burning on its surface. The hologram had sound. At first it was just static and the hum of ship engines. Then voices came through. Human voices, screaming, "Please don't leave us. They're coming. They're in the city. Someone help us." The voices were panicked, desperate. The sounds of weapons fire echoed in the background. And on the screen, the 12 human ships began to move. They turned away from the planet. Their engines glowed brighter. Where are they going? Why are the ships leaving? "Come back. Please come back." The voices got more desperate, more afraid. Children were crying. Adults were begging. And the ships kept moving. Faster now. They jumped to faster than light speed and vanished, leaving the planet behind. The hologram ended. The council chamber was quiet. Vrex looked around the room. This is who the humans are. When their own people needed them most, they fled. They are cowards who cannot be trusted in any alliance. More murmurs spread through the council. Yuna could hear them. Words like disgraceful and shameful and unreliable floated through the air. Some representatives were nodding their heads in agreement with Vrexstad, a delegate from the Korthan species, stood. They looked like large bears with silver fur. If this is true, how can we trust them to stand with us in any conflict? Another stood, a willow mind whose body was made of plant-like fibers. They abandoned their own. They would certainly abandon allies. High Arbiter Quellis raised two of her four hands, calling for silence. These are serious accusations. Does the human delegation have a response? All eyes turned to the human section. Minho looked at Yuna. She sat perfectly still, her face unchanged. She was staring at the empty hologram space where the footage had played. Commander Kim, Quellis asked, do you wish to address this evidence? Yuna didn't move for a long moment. Then slowly she stood. She walked down the steps to the center floor. Her boots made soft sounds on the smooth surface. When she reached the podium, she looked up at the hundreds of faces watching her. The footage is real, Yuna said quietly. Her voice carried through the chamber despite being soft. It has not been edited. What Ambassador Vrex showed you actually happened. The murmurs got louder. Was she admitting to cowardice? To abandoning her people? Minho closed his eyes. He knew Yuna. He knew what she was doing. But it was still hard to watch. Vrex smiled, showing his sharp teeth. You see? She admits it. The humans cannot deny their own shame. Yuna looked at Vrex. Her face was still calm, but something had changed in her eyes. Something cold and hard. I admit the footage is real, Yuna said. But it only shows 15 seconds of what happened that day. She reached into her uniform and pulled out a small data chip. Ambassador Vrex showed you what his observers saw from their position in high orbit. They saw the ships leave. They heard the radio broadcast from the civilian channels. Yuna held up the chip. The light in the chamber reflected off its surface. But they didn't hear what was happening on the military channels. They didn't hear the communications between our ships. They didn't hear what our people on the ground were saying to the fleet. The council chamber got very quiet again. Yuna's voice was still soft, but everyone was listening now. Do you want to hear the audio from our side? Yuna asked. High Arbiter Quellis leaned forward. You have recordings from the human military channels during this event? Yes, Yuna said. Complete and unedited. Every communication from that day. Vrex's smile faded. It changes nothing. Your ship still ran. Yuna looked at him. Perhaps. But truth needs context. You showed them what it looked like from outside. I can show them what it was like for us. She turned to Quellis. With the council's permission, I would like to play these recordings. Quellis looked around the chamber. Many representatives were nodding. They wanted to hear this. Permission granted, Quellis said. Let us hear the full truth of what happened at Terra Nova. Yuna inserted the chip into the central console. Her hand shook slightly as she did. Just a small tremor, barely visible, but Minho saw it. In all the years he had known her, he had never seen Yuna's hand shake. Terra Nova was my first command, Yuna said quietly. I was a lieutenant then. I was on one of those ships you saw leaving. She pressed a button on the console. This is what we heard. The first audio file began to play. There was static at first, then a voice came through. It was a man's voice, calm but serious. All fleet vessels, this is Captain Jin-Ho Song. We have new intelligence from the scout ships. Enemy reinforcements are inbound. Estimated arrival time is 3 hours, another voice responded. This one sounded younger, more worried. Captain, that's a problem. We're already outnumbered. How many more ships are coming? Scout reports at least 40 vessels, Jin-Ho said. Maybe more. They're coming in from the outer system. If they arrive before our reinforcements get here, we won't be able to hold. When do our reinforcements arrive? The younger voice asked. There was a pause. Then Jin-Ho answered. 8 hours. Maybe 9. The council chamber was silent as they listened. The math was simple. Enemy reinforcements in 3 hours. Friendly reinforcements in 8. That left 5 hours where the humans would be completely overwhelmed. Captain Song, this is Commander Yuna Kim on the Daejeon. That was a younger Yuna, her voice 15 years in the past. We need to make a decision. If we stay, we all die. Ships and colonists both. We can't win against those numbers. I know, Jin-Ho said quietly, but I didn't join the fleet to abandon people. The audio continued. Other ship captains joined the conversation, all of them saying the same thing. They wouldn't leave. They couldn't leave. Even if it meant certain death, then a new voice cut through. This one was different, rough and tired, with the sound of weapons fire in the background. Fleet Command, this is Colonel Sung Kwan on the surface. I'm reading your conversation. Stop talking and get out of here. Colonel, we can't, Jin-Ho started to say. That's an order, Captain. Kwan interrupted. Get the fleet out of this system now. Sir, with respect, we're not leaving you down there. You're not leaving us, Kwan said. We're buying you time. Yuna pressed another button. The hologram above the center floor changed. Now it showed a tactical display. A planet with 12 human ships around it. Red dots appeared at the edge of the screen, showing the enemy reinforcements approaching. This is the situation, Yuna said to the council. Her voice was steady now, falling into the tone of a military briefing. We had 12 ships. Good ships, but not enough. The enemy had 32 vessels already fighting us. Another 40 were on the way. Even with our full fleet, we would have been outnumbered 6-1. She pointed at the display. Our reinforcements were 8 hours away. We had called every human ship in range when the attack started. They were coming. But they were too far away. Ambassador Vrek stood. This proves my point. You were outnumbered, so you fled. That is cowardice. Yuna looked at him. Please wait until you hear everything. She played more audio. Colonel Kwan's voice came through again, clearer this time. Listen to me carefully, all ships. The civilians know the plan. We discussed it with them. They voted. 40,000 people, and they voted. Voted for what? Jinho asked, though his voice suggested he already knew the answer. They voted to fight, Kwan said simply. They know you need to leave. They know we need time, and they're willing to give it to you. There was silence on the recording. Then Yuna's younger voice spoke. Colonel, you're asking us to leave you to die. No, Lieutenant Kim, Kwan said. I'm asking you to leave us to fight. There's a difference. We're not giving up. We're holding position while you go get help. How long can you hold? Another captain asked. Long enough, Kwan said. You get moving. Gather every ship you can find. Then come back here and finish this fight properly. The next audio file played. This one was different. It was from the civilian communication channel on the surface. Multiple voices overlapping. Block C is setting up barriers on 5th Street. Medical teams, we need you at the school. That's our main shelter. Has anyone seen my son? He was supposed to be at Block F. I found him. He's safe. He's helping move supplies. These weren't soldiers. They were regular people, families, workers, farmers, and they were preparing to fight. One voice rose above the others. An older woman, her voice strong despite her age. Everyone listen. We've done drills for this. We know what to do. The fleet needs time to get help. We're going to give them that time. But they're leaving us. Someone shouted. No, the woman said firmly. They're going to get reinforcements. And we're going to be here when they get back. So pick up whatever you can use as a weapon and get to your positions. Then they started singing. It began with just one voice, then others joined in. An old Korean folk song, one that soldiers had sung centuries ago on Earth. The voices were scared, but they sang anyway. Yuna stopped the audio. The council chamber was completely silent now. No one was murmuring. No one was whispering. They just stared at her. The people on the ground weren't abandoned, Yuna said quietly. They were buying time. They knew exactly what was happening, and they chose to do it. Minho stood from his seat and walked down to join Yuna. He stood next to her, his large frame solid and steady. I was there, Minho said, on the surface. I was a sergeant then, assigned to Colonel Kwan's unit. I heard him give that order, and I watched 40,000 civilians pick up mining tools, farming equipment, construction gear, anything they could use to fight. He looked around at the council members. They weren't running. They weren't hiding. They were singing old songs and checking their weapons and telling jokes to keep everyone's spirits up. But you still left, Vrek said. He was trying to sound confident, but something in his voice had changed. He was less certain now. Yuna nodded. Yes, we left. Because staying would have accomplished nothing except getting everyone killed. Soldiers and civilians both. She activated another audio file. Captain Jinho's voice came through, and it was breaking now. The man was barely holding back tears. Colonel Kwan, please. There has to be another way. There isn't, Captain, Kwan said. His voice was gentler now. You know there isn't. If you stay, the civilians die and you die. If you leave, you have a chance to save some of us. Some, Jinho repeated bitterly. Some is better than none, Kwan said. Now stop wasting time and get moving. Every minute you argue with me is a minute you could be using to find more ships. There was a long pause on the recording. Then Jinho spoke again. We'll be back. I swear it. I know you will, Kwan said. That's why we're doing this. Now go. That's an order from the ground commander, and I outrank every one of you planetside officers. The audio ended. Yuna looked up at the council. We jumped away at 1400 hours station time, Yuna said. The civilian channels kept broadcasting. We could hear them fighting, Hear them singing. Hear them encouraging each other. She inserted another chip into the console. We went to the nearest human outpost. It was a fuel depot 40 minutes away at jump speed, and while the fleet refueled, the captain sent out a message. A call for help. Any human ship within range, please respond. The hologram changed again. Now it showed communication signals spreading out from a point in space like ripples in water. We expected maybe 5 or 6 ships to answer, Una said. Mining vessels. Cargo haulers. Maybe a patrol ship or 2. She looked at Vrex. Do you want to know how many ships answered that call? Vrex said nothing. He just stared at her. 147, Una said. Ships came from everywhere. Some were military vessels that changed course. Others were civilian ships. Mining rigs that mounted their cutting lasers on turrets. Cargo haulers that loaded themselves with explosives. A luxury transport that somehow found old missile tubes and welded them to its hull. Minho nodded. I heard the radio chatter when the fleet came back. One captain was flying a ship that was held together with emergency patches and hope. But he came anyway. They all came, Una said softly. Because that's what humans do. Una pressed another button. The hologram above the council floor changed to show a timeline. Numbers and timestamps appeared marking the hours of that day. The fleet left at 1400 hours, Una said. We reached the fuel depot at 1440. By 1500, the first response ships started arriving. By 1700, we had 147 vessels ready to jump back. She looked around the chamber. Every alien representative was watching now. Even those who had been nodding along with Vrex were silent and attentive. But while we were gathering that fleet, Una continued, the people on Terra Nova were fighting. This is what was happening on the ground. She played another audio file. This time it was Colonel Kwan's voice, but he was shouting now. Weapons fire was loud in the background, explosions, screaming. East sector, fall back to second line. West sector, hold that position. They're trying to flank us. Another voice came through, a woman's voice. Colonel, we've got wounded at the medical center. They're running out of supplies. Tell them to use whatever they have, Kwan said. Emergency kits, first aid from homes, anything. We just need people stable, not perfect. Yes, sir. More explosions. The sound of buildings collapsing. Then Kwan's voice again, softer this time, speaking to someone nearby. How long has it been? 3 hours since the fleet left, sir. 3 hours, Kwan repeated. We need to hold for at least 4 more. Can we do it? We'll do it, sir. We don't have a choice. Una stopped the recording. The enemy reinforcements arrived at 1700 hours. That's when the situation got worse. The force attacking Terra Nova doubled in size. She played more audio. The sounds of battle were louder now, more desperate. They're breaking through on the south side. Send everyone we have. Don't let them reach the shelters. We're out of ammunition in Block F. Then use tools. Use rocks. Use anything. A younger voice came through, scared but trying to sound brave. Mom, I'm scared. I know, baby. I know, but we have to hold on just a little longer. The fleet is coming back. They promised. What if they don't come? They will. They're human. Humans keep their promises. The council chamber was completely quiet. Some of the alien representatives looked uncomfortable. Others had their eyes closed, just listening. Minho spoke up. I was in Block F when we ran out of ammunition. We started using construction tools. Welding torches. Power drills. One old man used a farming tractor as a battering ram. He drove it straight into an enemy squad. He paused, remembering. He was 73 years old. Name was Mr. Bay. He died that day, but he took 6 enemies with him and bought us 10 more minutes. Una nodded. Stories like that happened all over the colony. People who had never held weapons before were fighting trained raiders, and they were winning sometimes. Not often, but sometimes. She played another recording. Colonel Kwan again. All positions, listen up. It's been 6 hours. The fleet should be gathering reinforcements by now. We've held longer than anyone expected. I'm proud of every one of you. Someone laughed on the recording, a bitter sound. Proud of us? Colonel, we're dying here. I know, Kwan said quietly. But we're dying on our feet, fighting. That's something to be proud of. If you say so, sir. I do say so. And I also say the fleet is coming back. So we hold 1 more hour, maybe 2. Then we hear those ship engines and this whole thing turns around. The recording captured the sound of more explosions, buildings falling, people crying out. And through it all, that old Korean folk song kept being sung. Quieter now, with fewer voices, but still there. Una looked at Ambassador Vrex. You showed the council footage of ships leaving. You played audio of civilians begging for help. But you didn't show them this. The part where those civilians picked up weapons and fought. Vrex's scales seemed to have lost some of their color. They were still abandoned. Left to fight alone. Alone? Migno said, and his voice was hard now. We had 40,000 people on that colony. 32,000 of them chose to fight. 8,000 were too young, too old, or too sick. We put those 8,000 in the deepest shelters we had. He stepped forward. Those 32,000 people knew what they were doing. They knew some of them would die, maybe all of them, but they also knew the fleet needed time. And they chose to give it. Una activated the hologram again. It showed the Terra Nova system. 12 ships jumping away. Then hours later, the same image, but different. Now there were 147 ships jumping in. The fleet returned at 1900 hours, Una said, 7 hours after they left. The enemy was not expecting us. They thought they had won. They were wrong. She played a new audio file. This one started with silence, then suddenly alarms, unknown contacts, multiple jump signatures. How many ships? I can't count them all. Dozens, maybe over 100. Where did they come from? The voice on the recording was panicked. It was an enemy communication channel that had been intercepted. The raiders were realizing what was happening. It's the humans. They came back. All of them came back. Where did they get so many ships? Break off. Break off the attack. We need to regroup. But there was no regrouping. The next audio was from Captain Jinho's ship. All vessels, this is Captain Song. Target selection is your choice. These enemies attacked our people, our families, our home. Show them what happens when you hurt humans. What followed was not a battle. It was vengeance. The 147 human ships fell on the enemy fleet like a hammer. Mining lasers cut through hulls. Cargo haulers rammed enemy vessels. The luxury transport with its improvised missile tubes fired everything it had. Enemy ship destroyed. Moving to next target. Their flagship is trying to run. I'm in pursuit. This is the cargo vessel Big Dreams. We just rammed an enemy cruiser. Still functional. Looking for another target. The audio continued. Ship after ship reporting enemy vessels destroyed. And through it all, another channel was playing. The civilian channel from the surface. Someone had spotted the human fleet arriving. Their voice came through, shaking with emotion. They came back. Oh God, they came back. Everyone, look up. Look at the sky. More voices joined in. Crying, laughing, cheering. I told you they'd come back. There's so many of them. Where did they all come from? And then Colonel Kwan's voice, tired, hurt, but triumphant. All ground forces, this is Colonel Kwan. Hold your positions. Watch the sky. That's our fleet up there. And they brought friends, he paused. The sound of ship engines filled the air as human vessels entered the atmosphere to provide support. Told you they'd come back, Kwan said softly. The cheering from the surface grew louder. People were crying, hugging each other, singing that old folk song again, but with joy this time instead of fear. Una stopped the audio. She looked around the council chamber. Many of the alien representatives had expressions of shock. Some looked moved by what they'd heard. Others seemed ashamed that they had believed Vrex's accusation so easily. The battle lasted another 2 hours, Una said. Of the 72 enemy vessels, only 3 escaped. The rest were destroyed or captured. She brought up another display. Lists of names. Thousands of them. Of the 32,000 colonists who fought, 8,000 survived. 24,000 died. They gave their lives to buy time. Time for the fleet to get help. Time for their families to be saved. Minho's voice was rough when he spoke. I watched people die that day. People I knew, friends, neighbors, a woman who ran the local bakery, a man who taught music to children. They died because they chose to fight instead of hide. He looked at Vrex. You call that cowardice? You call that abandonment? Vrex didn't answer. He was staring at the lists of names scrolling past on the display. Una touched the console and the display changed to show a message. It was dated 15 years ago, sent right after the battle ended. This is the official report that was filed, Una said. It lists every person who fought, every person who died, every person who survived, and it says the same thing at the beginning and the end. She highlighted a line in the report. The text grew large enough for everyone to see. No one was abandoned. Everyone was saved who could be saved. The fleet did not retreat. The fleet regrouped. High Arbiter Quellis spoke for the first time in many minutes. "Commander Kim, are you saying this was a planned strategy?" "Yes," Yuna said simply. "It wasn't what we wanted to do. But when we analyzed the situation, it was the only option that gave anyone a chance to survive." Ambassador Vrex finally found his voice again. "This is convenient storytelling. You have audio recordings that support your version of events, but audio can be faked. How do we know any of this is real?" Yuna looked at him calmly. "Because we have more than audio." She pressed another button on the console. The hologram changed to show video footage. Real footage, not just audio anymore. "This is from our ship cameras," Yuna said. "Every human military vessel has cameras recording at all times. This is the view from the bridge of the Dijon, the ship I was on." The video showed the inside of a ship's bridge. Young Lieutenant Yuna Kim stood at a console, her face tight with stress. Around her, other crew members worked frantically. "Ma'am, the enemy reinforcements just dropped out of jump. Count as 41 vessels." Young Yuna closed her eyes briefly. "Inform the captain." Captain Jinho appeared in the video. He looked older than his voice had sounded, with gray in his hair and lines around his eyes. "Options?" he asked quietly. "We have none, sir," young Yuna said. "If we stay, we lose everything. Ships and colony both. If we leave and get reinforcements, we might save some of the colonists." "Might," Jinho repeated. "Not will, might." "Yes, sir. It's the best option we have." "It's just not a good option." The captain was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. "Send the order. All ships prepare to jump, and get me Colonel Kwan on the ground." The video showed the conversation that Yuna had played earlier in audio form, but now the council could see the faces. Could see Captain Jinho's eyes fill with tears as he gave the order to leave. Could see young Lieutenant Yuna's hands shaking as she coordinated the jump. "We didn't want to leave," Yuna said softly to the council. "Every person on every ship wanted to stay and fight. But it would have been suicide. And suicide doesn't save anyone." The video continued. It showed the human fleet jumping away from Terra Nova, and in the background, on the communication screens, the colonists' faces appeared. Some were crying, some were afraid, but some were nodding, understanding what had to happen. "We jumped to Depot Station 17, Yuna said. "Here's the footage from there." The hologram changed to show the depot, a small station in empty space designed just for refueling ships. The 12 military vessels arrived and immediately started refueling. But that wasn't all they were doing. While the ships refueled, the captain sent out the call for help, Yuna explained. "This is the communication log." Text scrolled across the hologram. Message after message going out to any human ship in range. Urgent. Terra Nova under attack, colony defense force holding, but outnumbered. Any vessel able to assist, please. Respond, and the responses came flooding back. Mining ship Iron, Lady. Changing course now, ETA 3 hours. Cargo hauler Bright Horizon. We're coming. Hang on, patrol vessel Guardian. Already on our way, called 2 other patrol ships to join us. The messages kept coming. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. Ships came from everywhere, Minho said. Some were hours away. Some were days away but came anyway. Some had to abandon cargo runs and take losses to change course. They came anyway. The hologram showed the depot station again. Ships started arriving. First a few, then more, then a flood of vessels. Military ships, civilian ships, and everything in between. One ship in the footage caught attention. It was old and patched with parts from 3 different ship types welded together. "That's the merchant vessel Lucky Dragon," Yuna said. "Captain Hana Choi owned it. She was 3 days away when she got the call. She pushed her engines so hard they nearly exploded. She made it in 2 days. The video showed Captain Hana's face on a communication screen. She was young, maybe 30, with determined eyes. "My cousin lives on Terra Nova," she said in the footage. "Her kids go to school there. If you're going back to fight, I'm coming with you." "Your ship doesn't have weapons," someone said. "Then I'll ram them," Hana replied. "I'm coming," Yuna looked at the council. That was the attitude of every ship that arrived. They didn't have military training. Most didn't have weapons, but they came anyway. She changed the hologram to show tactical displays. At 1700 hours, we had 147 ships ready to jump back. Not the 12 we left with. 147. The display showed the fleet formation. The military vessels were in front. Behind them, the civilian ships had been organized into groups based on their capabilities. We gave them a quick briefing, Una said. Basic tactics, targeting priorities, how to work together. Then we jumped back to Terra Nova. The hologram showed what happened next. 147 ships appearing in space above Terra Nova all at once. The enemy fleet spread out in attack formation around the planet suddenly found themselves surrounded. They panicked, Minho said with satisfaction. They'd been fighting a small colony and a few ground troops. They weren't ready for a fleet that size. Una played another video. This one was from enemy ships, footage that had been recovered from the wrecks afterward. An alien commander appeared on screen, his species unknown, but his expression of shock universal. How many ships? Over 100, Commander. They just appeared, all around us. That's impossible. The humans only had 12 vessels. Not anymore, they don't, sir. The enemy commander's face showed fear. Pull back. Get us out of here. But there was no pulling back. The human fleet hit them from all sides. The video showed enemy ships trying to escape, only to be cut off by mining vessels with modified cutting lasers. Showed enemy cruisers being rammed by cargo haulers full of explosives. Showed the organized chaos of 147 ships working together to destroy a fleet that had tried to destroy their colony. Una stopped the video. The battle lasted 2 hours. We destroyed or captured 69 enemy vessels. 3 escaped, and the colony was saved. She brought up another display. This one showed the colony surface after the battle. Buildings were damaged. Some were destroyed, but people were standing in the streets, looking up at the sky where human ships circled protectively. 8,000 colonists survived, Una said. 8,000 people who would have died if the fleet had stayed and fought a battle we couldn't win. Ambassador Vrex was staring at the displays. His expression was difficult to read. You're saying this was all planned? He asked. That the colonists agreed to this? Yes, Una said. Show them, Minho. Minho stepped forward. He pulled out a small device from his pocket. This is a recording from the Colony Council meeting. It happened 6 hours before the attack. We had intelligence that raiders were coming and we knew we'd be outnumbered. He activated the device. A video appeared showing a room full of people. Colonists, regular people in regular clothes, and Colonel Quan standing at the front. We have a choice to make, Quan said in the video. The fleet can stay and fight. But if they do, we all die. The enemy is too strong. Or the fleet can leave, get reinforcements, and come back. But that means we fight alone for several hours. An older woman in the crowd stood up. You're asking us to be bait. Yes, Quan said honestly. That's exactly what I'm asking. And I know how it sounds, but it's the only way any of us survive. How long would we have to hold? A man asked. 6 to 8 hours. Maybe longer. It depends on how fast the reinforcements arrive. The crowd was silent. People looked at each other. Some were scared. Some were angry. Some were resigned. Then a young woman stood up. I have 2 daughters, 6 and 8 years old. If staying means we all die, including them, then I'd rather fight and give them a chance. Another person stood. I agree. If there's any chance of saving our children, we take it. More people stood. One by one, the colonists rose to their feet. The older woman who had spoken first looked around at everyone standing. Then she stood too. I guess we're doing this then. Let's make those bastards work for it. The video ended. The council chamber was silent. That vote was 40,000 to 0, Una said quietly. Every single person who could understand the situation agreed to the plan. The 8,000 who couldn't fight were put in shelters. The 32,000 who could fight picked up weapons. She looked at Vrex directly. So tell me, Ambassador, is it abandonment when everyone agrees to the plan? Is it cowardice when civilians volunteer to fight so that others have a chance to live? Ambassador Vrex sat down slowly. He said nothing. There was nothing he could say. The evidence was overwhelming. The footage was real. The audio was real. And most importantly, the survivors were real. High Arbiter Quellis stood. Commander Kim, this is remarkable evidence. But I have a question. If this was your strategy, why did you not explain this earlier? Why let the galaxy believe humans abandoned their colony? Una was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. Because the families asked us not to. She brought up another display. This showed a message, official and sealed with government stamps. After the battle, we wanted to publish the full story, to show what had happened. But the survivors said no. They said that the 24,000 who died deserved to be remembered as heroes, not as a military strategy. They didn't want their sacrifice to be turned into propaganda. Minho nodded. The families wanted their loved ones remembered as people who made a choice, who fought bravely, not as pawns in a military plan. So we kept quiet, Yuna said. We filed the reports. The information was available to anyone who looked, but we didn't advertise it. We let the people of Terra Nova tell their own story in their own way. She looked at Vrex. And for 15 years, some people believed we abandoned that colony. We let them believe it because it was more important to honor the dead than to defend our reputation. Quellis seemed impressed. That shows remarkable restraint. It shows respect, Yuna corrected gently. Those people died for us. The least we could do was respect their families' wishes. A new voice spoke up from the communication console. May I say something? Yuna looked surprised but nodded. Of course. The hologram changed to show an elderly man. He had white hair and a kind face marked with old scars. He was sitting in what looked like a comfortable room, with pictures on the walls behind him. My name is Taewon Cho, the old man said. I was 8 years old during the Battle of Terra Nova. I'm 63 now. The council chamber gave him their full attention. I was one of the 8,000 in the shelters, Taewon continued. Too young to fight. My parents were both in the defense force. My mother died in Block C. My father died protecting the medical center. His voice was steady, but emotion showed in his eyes. When I was young, I was angry. I thought the fleet had abandoned us. I didn't understand why they left. But as I grew older, as I learned what really happened, I understood. He looked directly at the camera, speaking to everyone watching. My parents didn't die because the fleet abandoned them. They died because they loved me. They fought so that I could live, so that 8,000 children and elderly and sick people could survive. And the fleet didn't abandon them. The fleet did exactly what my parents wanted them to do. Taewon paused, gathering his thoughts. I now have grandchildren. They're growing up on Terra Nova, on the world that my parents died to protect. And every year on the anniversary of that battle, we gather at the memorial. We read the names of the 24,000. We honor them. And we tell the children exactly what happened. He smiled slightly. We tell them that the fleet left to get help, that their ancestors fought bravely, that everyone made a choice together. And we tell them that the fleet came back just like they promised, with 147 ships full of people who came to help. Yuna was watching the old man with obvious emotion on her face now. Mr. Cho, thank you for speaking. Thank you for finally telling the galaxy the truth, Taewon said. My parents were heroes. All 32,000 of them were heroes. It's time everyone knew that. The communication ended. The council chamber was completely silent. High Arbiter Quellis looked at Yuna. Commander Kim, I must ask, does human military doctrine teach this strategy, to leave people behind as part of a tactical retreat? Yuna shook her head. No. Human military doctrine doesn't teach us to leave people behind. It teaches us something else. She stood straighter, falling into a formal tone. We don't retreat. We reposition. We don't abandon. We regroup. If a situation is impossible to win, we change the situation. That's what we did at Terra Nova. She gestured at the displays showing the timeline of events. When we left Terra Nova, we didn't leave the system. Our ships stayed at the edge of sensor range. We stayed in system the entire time. We were never more than one jump away. We could see what was happening on the planet. We were listening to every communication. We never left our people alone, Minho added. Every ship captain kept their vessel at the edge of the system, ready to jump back in if needed. We were always there. We just weren't visible. Terra Nova has become a training scenario now, Yuna said. We study it in military academies, not as an example of retreat, but as an example of tactical flexibility. When you can't win a battle, you change the parameters of the battle. She looked around at all the alien representatives. Humans don't give up. We adapt, we find another way. And we never ever leave our people behind. Sometimes leaving them means staying close enough to come back with help. A representative from the Korthan species stood. The large bear-like alien looked thoughtful. This is a very human way of thinking, she said. Most species would see leaving as leaving, but humans see it as repositioning, because that's what it was, Yuna said simply. We didn't run away. We ran toward reinforcements. There's a difference. Ambassador Vrex stood up again. He looked tired now and his earlier confidence was gone. I apologize, he said quietly. I showed the council only what I saw. A small part of the truth. I accused you of cowardice when you showed remarkable bravery. He looked at Yuna and Minho. The people of Terra Nova fought for 7 hours against impossible odds. And your fleet turned 12 ships into 147 in just a few hours. That is not weakness. That is strength of a kind my people don't have. Yuna nodded, accepting the apology. Quellis raised her forearms, calling for attention. The council has heard all the evidence. We have seen the truth of Terra Nova. The question before us is whether Earth should be admitted as a full member of the Galactic Coalition. She looked around the chamber. All those in favor of Earth's admission signify now. Lights began appearing on the voting board. One by one, representatives voted. The lights were green for yes, red for no. Green lights filled the board. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. When the voting ended, the board showed the result. 43 in favor. 3 abstentions. Only 1 vote against. Earth's admission to the Galactic Coalition is approved, Quellis announced. Welcome, Commander Kim. Welcome to the Alliance. The chamber filled with sound. Some species clapped, some made their own sounds of approval. Yuna stood still for a moment, taking it in. Then she bowed slightly. Thank you, she said. Earth is honored to join you. The session ended. Representatives began leaving the chamber. Some came to shake Yuna's hand or offer their species equivalent of congratulations. Others simply nodded with respect as they passed. When the chamber was nearly empty, Yuna and Minho stood alone in the center. We did it, Minho said quietly. They did it, Yuna corrected. The 32,000 who fought, the 8,000 who survived, the 147 ship crews who answered the call. They're the reason we're here, Minho nodded. Should we visit the memorial? Yes, Yuna said. I think we should. Later that evening, Yuna and Minho stood in front of a wall on Terra Nova. They had taken a fast ship after the council session, arriving just as the sun was setting. The memorial wall stretched for hundreds of meters. It was black stone, polished until it reflected like a mirror, and on that stone were carved 24,000 names. Yuna found one name, ran her fingers over the carved letters. Lieutenant June Park, she read aloud. He was my roommate in the academy. He died in the first hour of fighting. Minho found another name, Sergeant Yoonji Lee. She was my training instructor. She held the Eastern Line until the last minute. They stood there as the sun set, reading names, remembering faces, honoring the dead. Do you think they know? Minho asked. That we finally told the galaxy the truth? Yuna looked up at the darkening sky. Somewhere up there, ships were moving. Human ships, now part of the Galactic Coalition fleet. I think they know, she said softly, and I think they're proud. They stayed at the memorial until the stars came out, and when they finally left, Yuna took one last look at the wall of names. We didn't abandon you, she whispered. We never did, and now everyone knows what you did, what you sacrificed, what you won. The wind moved across the memorial, almost like the stone itself was breathing. 24,000 names in the starlight, 24,000 heroes who had bought time with their lives, who had trusted that help would come, and had been right. On the wall at the very top was an inscription. It was in Korean first, then translated into dozens of languages below. They held the line so that others could live. They fought alone so that the fleet could return with help. They were not abandoned. They were brave. Remember them. And the galaxy would remember. They would remember Terra Nova. They would remember the humans who fought and died. And they would remember that humans don't retreat. They reposition. They regroup. They return, always they return.